All right. Okay. I think we're good to go. All right. So, welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing um, another one of my favorite students. Her name is Isabella. So, Isabella,
I
how's it going?
it's going, turning the furnace on already, which is insane.
Yeah.
Gross. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's good.
Good. All right. Okay. So I had a bit of a glitch. So for those people who didn't hear what I just said, I'm interviewing one of my favorite students, Isabella, and Isabella was in one of my classes. Was it last year? It was last
Yeah,
year.
it would have been
Yeah.
winter last year,
Yeah.
as weird
Yeah.
as that is. Oh,
Yeah. So what I wanted to do today was Isabel and I were chatting, and we were talking about this whole concept of learning, but learning online, right? So I think what we'll do is we'll kind of flesh a little bit of that stuff out, and then I'll also ask you some other questions just in terms of how I think um, maybe we can help students who could be struggling just with learning in general too, right? Because
yeah.
you had some struggles too, right?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
totally.
So let's do this. Let's kind of talk about what your challenges were, how things got better for you, and then kind of some suggestions for the future. And maybe you can touch on some of that online learning stuff, which I think is
Yeah,
important. Okay.
absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. So we did a webinar recently together, right?
We
And
did.
what
Yeah.
was the one thing we had in common? The three of us. There's three of us, and we all had one thing in common.
We will never be qualified to teach math. That is for sure. We all had like 40s, 50s ish in high school math.
Yeah.
I know I think we all had like the same grades, but hey,
Yeah.
we pulled through, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's interesting because I think you're right. We all had like 40s in math. And so I guess my question now for you is that now I noticed, and I've gotten to know you a little bit better because we've done some work together, but now I noticed your GPA is very close to a 4.0, right?
Yeah, I just looked. It's a 3.54.
Okay.
So
Okay.
not bad.
Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah.
And your high school average was not very good, right? Just like mine. It was like
No. I
you.
think it was like probably like a 60,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I did not enjoy high school at all. But I really wish someone told me like how serious I should have actually taken it. And I know like your parents and like whatever, it's like, oh, do your homework and like get good grades in high school. And like they're not kidding because it made it a little difficult for me to actually get into university once I decided I wanted to. So, I mean, if you're watching this and you're in high school, seriously, please pay attention and like do the best you can. Obviously, if you don't want to get like into university, like, do your best still because you never know, things might change. I know I didn't really want to go to university after high school and I took, I think, 2 years off and that just wasn't the plan for me. I was like, hey, I'm just gonna work a regular job for however long, and things changed pretty quickly. So I did have to do some upgrading in university, which I'm very grateful that that's actually an opportunity. But I wouldn't have had to do that if I paid attention. So there you
So I
go.
got a question. I got a question. That's really awesome that you mentioned that. So you came back to school after working for a while, right?
Hmm.
Why did you
Yeah.
come back to school? And this is important I think it's important for those students who think, yeah, university isn't the thing for me and I'd rather just work. So I want to know
Hmm.
why. Why did you come back to school?
I mean, I think it's different for everyone. In the position I was in, I was managing a little cafe, and it had been, I think, like 2 years, and we had opened another location, and that didn't go well. So I was from manager to like an operational manager running both locations, and then we had to close down the newer one. Um, and then I just was kind of back to like my old managing, making schedules, that kind of thing. And I got a little bored. And I mean, I know that there's things I could have done to like challenge myself more. However, I didn't really feel like doing that for another year or so. So I broke it up into things. It was what, summer before September 2019. And so I quit, did a little sabbatical, went to Vancouver with some friends, and then I got back and I was like, okay, gonna do school now. I need to find out where I need to apply, what I need, what I actually want to do. My original plan was to get my BA in psychology. However, as we've touched on before, I cannot do math to save my life. And you need a pretty good math grade for a psychology degree. So switched gears and now I'm in social work. So that's given me and will give me a bunch of more opportunities than I think a BA in psychology would have. And I mean, so far I'm really enjoying the content.
So the reason why you went back to school is because you just found that your opportunities are going to be limited. Is that correct?
Yeah. And I mean, like a lot of people are really happy working like 9 to 5 in whatever job. And like, that's awesome. I say stick to it. If you love it, don't change anything. But I was at that point where I was like, okay, I need to do more. Like I want to do more. And a lot of people are kind of forced into university right after high school. And like, I would have wasted a lot of money if I did that. So I'm really glad that I took the 2 years off and just kind of made money and worked and got some more like experience. But I applied because I felt ready. It wasn't pressure from my mom or my peers or whoever. It's like I wanted to do it. So I
Yeah,
think that's really important too, that you should want to do it.
100%. You know, it's interesting because one of the things that I think um, you really kind of touched on is that if you're going to university, or in fact if you're going to do anything, and I think more your personality, just because that's who you are, you're not the kind of person who's going to do well if you're forced to do anything, right?
Oh God, no.
It's got to be
No.
your idea. Now that's pretty awesome because um, the reason why I'm saying that is because a lot of times students, they struggle at university, right? Or they struggle just in areas of their life. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they feel they're forced to do it and it's not their decision, right?
Yeah. And like I'm so glad that I was never put in that position because I mean, you're kind of forced to do high school. It's good to have a diploma. It really is. Um, but I think like I was talking to someone recently and I was like, oh, so after your degree, what do you want to do? What do you want to focus on? And they were like, I don't know, my mom wanted me to get a degree, so here I am. And I was like, I really hope that you want the degree
Mm,
and you use that education for something that you actually want to do, because like that would suck. Like I don't know, I feel very bad if people are very forced into it. And I think, I mean, it's a privilege to be able to go to university and college and whatnot. So I think if you're doing that, you know do it for the right reasons and for yourself, because I mean you're sticking around, right? So
yeah, and I think
yeah.
that's key. And I know a lot of, like, I do a lot of programs myself, and I teach a lot of students online, and I work with them privately. And that's one thing I've noticed consistently, and that is if they aren't ready, if they don't want to improve, if they don't want to get better results, nothing will help them. So that's,
Exactly.
yeah. So I'm really glad you brought that up because a lot of times people will say, well, I just got to do it and then I'll get it done. And then what ends up happening is they spend, I mean, how much is it now for a class at university? Like $700, right? So,
It's
so
a
it's
lot of
really,
money.
yeah. So it's really interesting, and it's important that we understand that. Listen, if you're at a stage where you don't want to be there, and you don't really feel a desire to learn, you're going to be wasting like $700 per class. And on average, people take like 4 classes per semester. So that's
I
eight,
think so, yeah.
right? So we're not good in math, but I think I can do eight.
I
Eight
was
times
gonna say,
seven.
please don't ask me the totals.
Isabella, what's 8 times 7? No, no. So eight
It's a
times
great
seven.
question.
8 times 7 is like $5,600, right? I hope
That's
I'm
a lot
right.
of money.
Yeah, so $5,600 to find out if university is for you, right?
Yeah. And I mean, like, open studies is another thing. Like, I think if you kind of want to dip your toe into what kind of university is and what the options are and whatnot, like open studies or whatever that's called in some other universities is a good idea, because you can take a bunch of like gen eds and whatnot to see kind of like, what flavor you want. So,
Yeah,
but
but
yeah, I mean, it's also kind of similar to if you know someone or yourself is kind of struggling with some mental health problems, and you want to help this person so bad and you give them the resources and everything, but you can't help someone that doesn't want to help themselves.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge too. So
Yeah. And I think that's very important to mention, because there could be some parents watching this, right? And they could be telling their kids, go to school, go to school, go to school. But what'll happen is that if the kid doesn't feel that desire and they're not really pumped to go, then everybody loses. The kid is
yeah.
going to think that they're dumb because they didn't do well, and it's not, and that's probably not the reason why. It's because they
Mm-mm.
just weren't at that stage in life, and the parent is going to lose out, because if they pay for the kid's education, there's going to be no return on it, and everyone's going to
Yeah.
suffer, right? So when you do make that transition over from high school to university, you got to be ready, I think. And in the beginning, I wasn't such a big fan of taking a year off, but the more I talk to students who've taken that year, the more they come back and they have this drive and this ambition, right? And I
Yeah,
think,
seriously.
and I think if you got that drive and ambition, you can do exceptionally well at university.
Yeah, like I took the 2 years off and then I had to upgrade an English class and a social studies class, and I got 80s. And like that would never happen.
Yeah,
And it was, the highest level, 30-1 or whatever. And I was in -2, -3 for all of high school. And I like knocked that out of the park, got an 80, 85, I think, because I wanted to. Like that was the drive. I was like, hey, I want to do this. I want to get good grades so then I have more opportunities. And it kind of sucks that everything's based off of, you know, a grade. However, that's how life is. And if you want to get where you want to, you're probably going to need some tools, right? So,
yeah. So speaking of tools, the course that you took with me, what stood out? Like what stood out? What helped you?
well,
And
it's funny because when I was talking to my open studies advisor or whatever, and we were picking classes for the semester, they said that they were like, yeah, if you don't like this class, like it's fine, you don't really need it. And I was like, oh, okay. But this to date was like one of the best classes I ever decided to take because of how like real and valuable the information that you taught everyone was. The thing that definitely stuck with me was mindset. And I know my mom is a big believer in mindset and, the black cloud energy and blah, blah, blah. But to really put it in perspective to like a student's point of view, I really hope that everyone who takes that class carries on some of the knowledge that you shared with us.
was there anything that stood out in that class that you maybe could share? Something that really helped you?
Um, Probably, well, yeah, mindset. And I mean, the equation for success was huge. A lot of students I know, well, kind of myself, but a lot of people study and study and study and study, and they put so much, so much, so much effort into whatever they're doing. And yeah, they're taking notes and they're reading the textbook, and that's their strategy, but they're not getting the results that they want because they're not in the right headspace. So, what is it? 80% mindset, 10% effort, and
Close, 85 mindset, 10,
85 mindset.
10 strategies, and then 5%, right? So 5%
Hmm.
effort. And that's where people, I think, go wrong. And that is, they think they just got effort, effort, effort all day long. And then
Hmm.
when that happens, they don't get the result. It's because it's not backed up with the right type of thinking, right?
Exactly. And then for the proven strategies of that, when we talked about um, learning styles and stuff, that really helped. I thought there was only one learning style, which was visual. Like I was like, either you're visual or you're, I don't know, something else. But taking that information from me being a visual learner, flashcards, super helpful, diagrams, um, putting things into different perspectives so that my brain can like figure it out actually has definitely helped with studying and stuff, especially now that we're doing school online. Um, Obviously, classes are what, 95%, what is it? Not auditory, but
Verbal, verbal.
verbal. It's all written on the board and slideshows and like blah blah blah. So knowing what your learning strategy is and your learning style will really help you in the long run, so you can adapt that knowledge and then put it into something that translates properly.
Yeah, and that's huge because what happens is, and I think it's important for students to be aware of this, is that, you know, and Isabella, feel free to interject as well. But I think what happens in most schools today is that students are never taught, number one, how to learn,
Mm-mm.
and then on top of that, then they don't even know what they're learning, like their strongest learning style is. So then they got two things that would really help them, but they're never taught that. And then
Yeah.
they're given all this information, and their whole life depends on doing well in these courses, but they don't have the foundation, right? They don't have the understanding of how their mind works. They don't understand how to learn. They don't understand the best way for them to absorb information. And I always talk about this in my class. I'm like, that's like getting hired to do a job, but you're not told how to do it.
Yeah, and then you kind of just sit there and you're like, okay, like I guess I'll write this stuff down. Mm.
Yeah,
Like that's what I did all of high school. And I mean, some of the classes that I've taken that I didn't find so interesting, I just, okay, slideshow, there's bullet points. So I'm going to write down those bullet points because they're up there and they're probably important. Um, Textbook, I guess I'll flip through that. Like I paid enough freaking money for it.
yeah.
But with that, like I'm able to adapt. And like if you're oh, I already forgot the word. Um,
Auditory, verbal.
Verbal. If you're a verbal learner, that's awesome. Like you're winning because that's how the majority of classes are taught.
Yeah,
And I think the other thing is that, I mean, I'm not putting blame on anyone, but teachers, professors, they just need to give the information. And what you do with that information is up to you. So using learning styles and mindset and your proven strategies, use it to your advantage.
yeah, 100%. And I think one of the things that I think is also important is that now there's this transition to like online learning, right?
Hmm.
So there's a lot of challenges for online learning, right? So
Yeah.
maybe you can describe what those challenges are and then how you've been able to kind of deal with them.
I mean, there's been some like, it's been tough. I'm not gonna lie. It's been really tough. And um, we did all this work before for the webinar and I was like feeling prepared and whatnot, but actually getting into the course, I feel overwhelmed by the material. That being said, I am like a first year student and I'm like a child. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Um, but I mean, there's, those daily distractions and kind of setting up a workspace. Like I'm in my room, my desk is in my closet, and this is like my workspace. But differentiating, before it was like, okay, library, that's where I go to study, that's where I go to do my projects and work. Home is where I get to relax. And so not having that clear kind of boundary has become a little difficult. As well, I've, recently acquired 3 roommates, which is very fun. However, I was in class one time and then someone brought a dog over and there's barking and I'm in the basement and I hear like 4 paws on the floor and I was very confused. And then someone busted into my room to give me an Amazon package while I was talking to a professor. Like, it's like those kind of little things that it's life now and we kind of have to get used to that. But yeah. Um, but also I think that some of the challenges that I've come across with the online learning is differentiating, home and study time, but also keeping yourself accountable. I think that's huge. I'm, doing my best to keep myself accountable for assignments and everything. And right above me, I have my course outlines taped on my shelf, so I can look up and say, okay, so I have to do, you know, read this chapter and that. But I think it all gets pretty overwhelming because you are in your own personal space.
Yeah.
So if you have a place to kind of specifically do your work, if you have an office or I don't know. I wouldn't even recommend the kitchen table because like that's where you eat and like
Mhm.
relax and spend time with whoever. So finding a place that is separate from everything and you can like call it that's where you do school, I think that'll be very beneficial for some people.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm also feeling the effects of it too, and not in the way you think. Like, I was teaching a course once, and people can type in the chat, right, if they have any questions and stuff. So one day I was teaching, and then all of a sudden, all these like characters, like when you swear at someone, they got the exclamation mark and they got the power
Mm-hmm.
sign. So one student did that like for a couple of times, and I'm like, why is the student swearing at me? Like, what's going on here? And I was so confused. And then she said, "Oh, sorry, my cat just ran across my keyboard." So
Yeah, one of my professors has her cat like just
yeah,
hanging out, and I'm like, all right, this is normal, I guess.
yeah,
But
no, it's pretty interesting how things have happened. So what do you think some of the solutions are? Like, I know you talk about one of them is to get your own space, things like that. Any other things that you think could help students out? Like, I think another one we talked about was just creating a schedule, right? Like,
yeah,
create a
definitely
schedule.
creating like hard and soft deadlines. Like I like to do that in my phone calendar. So let's look. I have a I have journal 2 due on October 23rd. So I'm gonna probably want to get that done October 19th so that I can kind of let it sit for a day or two and then come back to it and review it. Especially in this class, I have learned that minor mistakes are big percentages off. So I really need to be able to kind of take the time and like review that because I mean, I don't want to, lower my GPA. That's not the whole point of this, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And I think that's something
yeah.
that's a really good technique, and that is to set these hard and soft deadlines. So let's touch on this because I think this is a good strategy for some students. And
Hmm.
basically, what Isabella is talking about is that she sets a deadline for when something is due and it's non-negotiable, right? So that's like a due
Yeah.
date, right? But then what she does is she sets a date a few days prior to that, and that's when everything is done. And then what she does is she creates something called externalization days, where she just fine tunes the assignment. And so this is
Hmm.
again something that we were taught, that I taught them in class. And what ends up happening is, because you have those extra few days to fine tune it, your chance of doing well goes up, right? Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah. And like, so I handed in an assignment a bit early and then I got it back and I did have another opportunity to go over it. And in that time, I booked an appointment with a student learning services and had like a professional go over it with me and fine tune it. And like, especially during this, because it feels like we're kind of alone as students. Like, we're not able to, I don't know, office hours are kind of weird because it's like, you on the computer with your professor and it just seems very odd and usually like in person it'll feel a lot more comfortable. Um, but yeah, taking advantage of like your school's systems that are like built to help you, like I've been taking advantage of those and I mean I only get so many, but I mean you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess.
What are some things you would recommend students can take advantage of? Like, what kind of resources have helped you?
Well, definitely our university's like student learning services. You get to book an appointment specifically for what you need. I needed to go over my APA formatting since that is now 7th edition as of this year. This, great 2020 add-on changed the whole system. Um, yeah. Ugh.
Gotta
They're
love
like,
that.
yeah, so by the way, we're APA has now changed to the 7th edition. There's
Not
like
that
minor changes, but they'll get you
Yeah,
on
and
it.
not that we have enough challenges in 2020. Might as well throw
Oh
them.
no,
Yeah, might as well
no. The
throw
global pandemic is like whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so taking advantage of like those school resources for sure.
So
If
like
you don't
helping,
have that,
help
hmm,
getting somebody to help you write essays is one
hmm,
resource, right? And
yeah,
then I think there's also other ones too, right? Like, maybe I think there's courses on like how you can improve your time management, right? That's
Oh
another.
yeah, so there's I forget what they're specifically called, but they're like student workshops.
Yeah, yeah,
And I've taken one for APA when it was sixth edition. And then I did another one, I think, on time management, and there's like a bunch. So if your school offers those, like just do it. They're like half an hour.
yeah.
They they don't, go off on a tangent on other things. They're focused on that one topic that you've signed up for. Um, and like I also think like don't be afraid to email your professors. Like I don't know, I've been kind of like resisting because I feel bad because I'm like, okay, they probably have so many emails, but that's you're a student, and if you're having trouble understanding something, like don't be afraid to get clarification because as everyone says, there's no stupid questions, but be clear. Like there's nothing worse than thinking you're like on the right track and then someone's like, oh, actually, I think we were supposed to do it this way. I was reviewing a colleague's paper. We both did the same paper, and it was like completely different. Like hers was totally different, mine was totally different, but I don't know. I think it was fine, but it's good to,
Yeah, so let
get
me let me
clarity.
let me let me touch on that a little bit because I'm on the other end, right? I'm the guy.
Yeah,
I'm the other guy. I'm the guy getting all the emails.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you. I think one of the things that is very important to understand if you're a student is that if you don't go to class and you ask your instructor, "Hey, I don't understand this, and I can you explain that?" That is like one of the worst things you can ever do because I just experienced that. A student didn't go to class and they're like, "Hey, can you just teach me this?" Now, if you do that, that's probably one of the worst things you can do because that just shows that you are, how do I say it in a nice way? It just shows that you aren't respectful of your instructor's time, right? And it
Yeah.
also shows that you're not taking it upon yourself to learn the material.
Mhm.
So usually when
Yeah.
I get an email like that, my response is very quick and it's
Yeah.
like, check the slides, we talked about it, and I spent 20 minutes on it, and that's it.
Yeah.
Now, there are other types of emails where the student, you can tell, has gone through the material and all they want is clarification and they want examples, and that's a different story. And
Yeah.
if that's a situation, then I think professors are more than happy to do that.
Most of the time, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's important that you understand that it's not sending an email; it's the type of email you send.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, if you're able to reach out to classmates, like I know I have a lot of group projects, which is just fantastic, but I've been able to get in a bunch of group chats for each of my
Yeah,
courses, and um, we've been talking about some essays that we've submitted, like, hey, like, what were your kind of recommendations to fix on this? Um, can someone proofread this? Like, because we're all in this together,
yeah.
and obviously, like, I don't know what it's like from like a professor's um, position, but I know it's difficult for like both parties.
Yeah. So here's one thing, and I think this is very important to students, and that is, and I do this more purposeful now or purposely now than ever before, and that is what I do is I put students in groups right away. And the
Hmm.
reason for that is because then in their groups, they now have a bit of a support structure in place.
Yeah.
So if they miss a class, which can happen,
Hmm.
they can speak to their group members. If they don't
Yeah.
understand something, they can speak to their group members. If they need help learning something, they can talk to their group members. If they want to study with someone, they can talk to their
Yeah.
group members, right? So if you're not assigned group members, that's fine, but at least try to get, two or three students in your class, get their information and
Yeah.
talk to them. I think that'll help you a lot with online learning as well.
Yeah. And like it's weird because we're, not sitting next to each other,
Yeah.
but I almost can guarantee that that person that you're like about to email is in the same boat. They're like, "Ooh, like I hope someone reaches out to me."
Yeah.
Like take that first step. And you know what? If they don't, if they prefer to work alone, that's fine, Best of luck. I'm going to find someone else because,
Yeah.
teamwork really helps sometimes, especially in this circumstance.
Yeah. Good. Good. So I think we're good. I was just going to ask you, did you want to maybe wrap it up and say, give any advice that you think would be valuable or anything you'd like to share with students who are watching this or even, parents or teachers?
Hmm. Yeah. I think I would say, as more specifically with what we're all experiencing right now, it it's weird and it's like I don't like it. I don't think anyone likes it. But like be patient with yourself because this is like a huge learning curve and like as a technically first year student, like this is all very new to me and I have to give myself the benefit of the doubt that like I'm gonna get through this. Like it's gonna be fine. There's a bunch of people in the same situation as I am, and just knowing that this is this is extraordinary. Like this is not typical, right? And not that that's an excuse, but if you know you're feeling like stressed out more than usual, or you're just not understanding the content, or your Google Meet call cuts out and you can't, it's all a part of the, you know, global pandemic. So
Yeah, and I think
be
that's
kind to yourself.
yeah, I think that's huge because I think a lot of times people are they're putting up too much pressure on themselves,
Hmm.
and I think even professors we understand that everybody's going through challenges, so
Yeah.
it's important to kind of still do your best, but if things don't work out, like I just before I spoke to you, I was on a call and my video didn't work. I couldn't access my slides, and something else happened too.
It's so
And
frustrating.
then I rebooted, and you know, whenever you reboot, it's fine until the time when you actually need it to reboot. It doesn't
Oh
reboot.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that happened to me too, and I had like 20 people on the call waiting for me. It's frustrating, but the good news is everybody's patient. Everybody's
Yeah.
can expect things to not go properly. So I think that's a really good point that you brought up, Isabel.
Yeah. And I think also like if your regular course load for like in-person classes is usually like 5 courses, like I don't know, like don't be bummed out or like whatever if you need to take 3 or 4 instead, because
Yeah,
this is like a huge learning curve for a lot of people. And like if it's not, like good for you, that's awesome. I'm over here struggling, but I think if you can, you know, take 3 courses or 2 courses even and just like balance it out so that you're on top and you're like 100% certain about everything that you're doing, you'd rather get, you know, 90s in 2 classes rather than, you know, 75 80s in 4 or 5, right?
yeah, yeah. Good. Makes a lot of sense. Awesome. Okay, we're done. Let me just kind of figure out how this works here.